Hey, welcome everyone. This is John Park with the Utah League of Cities and Towns. I'd like to welcome you to our annual conference, our last day of our annual conference. I'm sure you've been fed well. And today we're going to talk about an innovative approach to diversity and inclusion presented by the Arbinger Institute. And I'll introduce Desmond, our presenter, in just a minute. This workshop is sponsored today by Dominion Energy. You can see the slide there, and we would like to thank you for your sponsorship. Our sponsors are such an important part of what we do at the League. Before I introduce our instructor, I want to remind you that to ask a question, just type your question or type it right in the chat room, and I will try my very best to pick those up. Desmond will be watching that as well, and so we'll make sure that the things happen correctly. You also have in front of you a poll. Should have a poll. You can mark with your mayor, city council, city staff, those kind of things, and then we're now the audience that we're participating with today. So please take a moment and fill that out. Desmond Lomax has become a good friend of mine, and I'm happy to introduce him. He's a clinical mental health therapist who worked in the field of law enforcement and corrections for over 20 years. He retired from the Utah Department of Corrections, where he worked as a community program director. In early 2020, enjoyed Arbinger as a senior consultant. At the Department of Corrections, Desmond worked to expand treatment resources for those on probation and parole throughout the state. He has a passion for helping others and was led by this passion to the field of therapy and corrections. He thoroughly enjoyed facilitating outward mindset workshops within the Utah Department of Corrections and saw the benefits that outward mindset brought to the department and the community it serves. He's an adjunct professor at the University of Utah, go Utes, in the field of forensic social work. He's past president of the Utah Mental Health Counseling Association and has been married for 22 years. So Desmond, just go ahead and take it away.
Thank you. I appreciate it, John. John's been a great advocate, a good mentor, and I know many of you who know John would agree with that. I want to thank you all for being here. Hopefully we'll have some fun. We'll look at this in a new, innovative way, and hopefully I'll teach you some principles that you can apply to your day-to-day work in this realm. This has become, I was asked to do this a month ago, and I think there's been some high interest in what exactly is the best approach to diversity and inclusion. And then the high interest heightened where recently, there was an executive order to not have diversity and inclusion training in the federal government, which I think perked up other people's ears. And so I'm going to discuss like all types of things today, but I really want to, the reason why this is an innovative approach, it's simply because diversity is inclusive. We all have diversity, and we're going to discuss that in details as we move forward today. Let me share my screen with you really quick, and let's move forward. All right. All right. So this is my slide, innovative approach. And this is my background a little bit. Currently, I spend a lot of my time working in New York City, working in other government organizations. I also work in corporate organizations as well, working with these Arbinger mindsets, principles and tools. I'm going to discuss some of those tools today and how they go seamlessly in discussing diversity and inclusion. And that's the neat thing about my job is that initially, my primary work with Arbinger was working with law enforcement officers and public safety officers. I work with law enforcement officers, firefighters, corrections, and as things have, as the temperament of our country has heightened, there's been this greater need for people to learn more about diversity and inclusion and how that applies. I'm a big fan of relationships. I'm also a big fan of this tie because obviously in my slide, I'm wearing the same tie. I didn't know that till right now, but I love this tie. But like understanding like the principles of what it means to develop meaningful relationships can really help us when we're trying to understand diversity and inclusion. So these are some of the goals today. We're going to talk about just the goals of EDI discussions, why we want to have those discussions. We're going to talk about Arbinger being a principle, being at the core principle, like Arbinger's principles at the core of this discussion. We're going to talk about a hybrid facilitation, how we would facilitate this in a way where we could get really get moving forward when we have time together. And we'll talk about that, how we have an in-person and an online training that we like to share. We also talk about we want to understand the needs of organizations. Every organization is different. And then we also have a customization of what we do in regards to EDI and the products. But first, let's talk about equity, diversity, and inclusion. I've received a lot of feedback, and it's interesting to me. I've talked to a lot of people, and I love how people like walk into the room, right? Like you have a diversity and inclusion training, right? And there's people, how do they like approach and walk into the room? And there's just some people that they kind of walk into the room a little hesitant. And I was doing a training this week, and I went to the restroom. Bear with me, there's a point to this. And there was a line, in the restroom. And one of the individuals said, "Hey, I'm gonna get up and go. There's another restroom down the way." I'm like, "Well, cool," because I was in the line, so I mean, I'm close to the line. But so an hour later, he goes, "Desmond, oh my goodness, I can't believe, I treated you so poorly." I'm like, "What do you mean you treated me poorly? I just totally walked out as soon as you walked in, and we're doing this inclusion training." And I'm like, "Dude, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? I thought you were being kind because you knew there was another restroom down the way." But he had all of this stuff in his head that somehow he was going to do or say something wrong, right? And I think this is one of the things we really need to address when we're addressing EDI training, right? This principle of, if I am a white male who's in the suburbs that's living a pretty decent life, now I'm going to come into this training, and no matter what I say, it's wrong, right? That's not diversity training. It's not equity training. It's not inclusive training. If that is the goal of the training, then we've completely missed the point, right? So I want to put that out there up front, right? Our ability and our capacity to have meaningful training is to make sure everyone in the group is included, inclusive, and a part of it. And the more I got talking to people, the more people felt this real hesitation. I'm going to do something wrong. I'm going to say something wrong. Things aren't going to wait. This is going to be awkward. I'm just going to be really uncomfortable. What is this all about? And the reality is bringing that with you, being open about that is a part of the healing that occurs in this training. It's a really meaningful exercise when everyone is speaking about the difficulties and struggles, because we all are navigating difficulties and struggles in the current environment in which we're in. And so that is a key piece that I've got to mention up front. So one of our goals is to educate, right? We all have culture. We need to appreciate that. Everybody here has culture. Some of us have so much culture that we don't even realize we're in it, right? Some of us, for example, what we eat, where we eat, vehicles we drive, like music we listen to, you would be surprised on how much of your culture you're immersed in without even really having an understanding that it's a thing, right? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about enhanced understanding everyone in the group, not just specific people in the group, not just people of color in the group. We're going to understand everybody. We're going to improve relationships. As soon as people are talking and they're not afraid to make mistakes, or they're not afraid to express their emotions, and people are trying to understand what people are going through, it's a really fun experience, right? We're going to develop new skills. You're going to take away a few skills with you today. I'm going to share a few skills with you today that I share in the trainings that I'm going to take away. And we're going to improve safety. Like, I talk to a lot of law enforcement agencies across the country, and we do these trainings. I'm like, you want to be safer. The best way to be safe is to see the totalities of a person, not just the part of the person that represents a problem. If all I ever see in my day-to-day work are problems, then That problem is simply a nail and I'm a hammer. The capacity to see the diverse nature of an individual, you're also able to see not just the difficulties, but also the great potential that that person has. And in some circumstances, you can tap into that potential to resolve most difficult circumstances. And so we're going to talk about that tool today. And also we want to enhance accountability and impact on others. Sometimes if we've grown up in an environment where it hasn't had a lot of different cultures, then that could be challenging. I talked to a lady the other day, she goes, the most culture I had was we had Lutherans and Catholics. That was our culture in my little small Minnesota town. I'm like, great, it's a great place to start. But recognizing that no matter what type of background you're from, the things we say and do and how we engage each other has impact. It has impact, and we need to be aware of that impact. All right, so I want to cover just some of the basic principles and how we do this training and how it's kind of innovative and unique. One thing we do is we have a hybrid training. We do some things online. We do some things online, and we do some things in person. And I think in recognizing that, it gives us a few things. First of all, most organizations don't have the flexibility, right? They don't have this ability or flexibility to like take a day off or 2 days off to learn any training. Our Outward Mindset Online, and I'm going to show you a quick video here in a second, is a great way to watch videos discussing Arbinger principles and how to see people as people and how to understand the underlying motivations of mindset. And going through that basic training, then when we meet for 2 hours, we have an in-person facilitation that discusses strictly diversity and inclusion. What that provides is it provides information, first of all, general information that's pretty useful in our most difficult circumstances, no matter whether that person is diverse or not. And the other piece is that our Arbinger work gives us a really sound foundation of what it means to see others. And so we believe that type of training is super meaningful and very helpful. Okay. So our Outward Mindset Online training there's several modules. You flip through the modules, and each module has a videos. You see these videos, they're between 8 and 12 minutes long, and they talk about different communication and mindset principles. All right. I'm going to share this real quick. Make sure I got my computer sound on so I can share that. Okay, let's pull this up. Read a little video that describes, it's about a 3-minute video. It describes this first part of our training, and then we'll go into the in-person training. Enjoy.
Welcome to Outward Mindset Online. In this course, you will be learning from the experiences of real people, not actors, who will help you understand your experience by sharing their experience. You'll learn from teachers and doctors, mechanics and CEOs, parents wrestling through challenging situations with their children. You will learn from police officers and bankers. They are all on this learning journey too, and we'll sit next to them as they wrestle with and discover new ways to tackle a range of challenges. You'll grapple with complex boardroom challenges.
We had to cut $100 million, and we had 30 days to tell corporate how we were going to do it.
You will see with new eyes solutions to the routine but painful struggles of our personal lives.
You don't deserve as much as you think you do, because you're affecting other lives, other people.
You will find yourself in the back of a SWAT van, and you'll witness innovative approaches to conflict in high-stakes and dangerous situations. And you will see what it takes to transform blighted neighborhoods. You will work through how to solve the challenges of operating a hospital emergency room and an inner-city high school classroom. You will see that the impediments to success in a high-profile entertainment organization are really no different than the problems people face in running a wilderness treatment program for at-risk youth. Most importantly, you will discover that all of these challenges, the problems faced by people, in every organization have the same root cause. What challenges are you wrestling with right now? What problems do you want to solve? And why has it been so difficult to enable real change? What's getting in the way?
Okay, so that's our online training. Super cool. The only challenge of that training is I'm in it sometimes, so you have to bear with me. And so we're going to talk about what we do in our 2-hour in-person training. I'm going to talk about a few of the principles that are important that I think are really neat to share and worth sharing when we talk about things like diversity and inclusion. Many times, like I said before, people are excluded from diversity trainings, and I think they feel that as they engage the training. Some of the things I'm going to talk about today reverse that, and let's get into it as we discuss it. If you have any questions, just drop them on the chat window, folks. We will follow that and get along with it. All right, so the first thing we want to do is create a safe space. So one of the things that we really struggle in doing in diversity and inclusion training is we really struggle with this capacity to include others. Okay, what's it? Okay, let me see. Okay, let me swap this out. Excuse me. All right. So one of the things we struggle to do is we really want to create a safe space. And so this is important. So this is something I've learned, and that people really struggle with their capacity to communicate with other people, particularly in personal situations. Now, our standard Arbinger training really talks about having a certain amount of success and wanting to get to a higher level of success. And so in our process of seeing people as people and engaging in some of these tools, our goal is to have higher productivity, to move forward in a lot of ways. And the reality is, and McKinsey and Associates did a long research about diversity. Our ability to be more diverse also helps to improve productivity in our jobs. And they have a 50-page document, and if you want, I will send the link to John, and he'll make sure he gets it all to you. But it was a great document about the importance of diversity and the improvement of productivity. But recognizing all of that, times are very sensitive, and communicating about maybe the struggles I have because of my ethnic background is usually a difficult thing. Maybe the struggles I have because I don't have an ethnic background and I kind of feel goofy about it is usually a difficult thing. So the first thing we want to do is really create a space where when we communicate, people honor each other, right? And so we call, one of the key words we like to use is shared experiences, right? We want to trust other people's shared experiences. We want to be curious about their shared experiences. We want to have conversations where we honor each other, even though our experiences are different, all right? And I know you guys are thinking, what did you just say? Right? We can have conversations. We can have conversations where people have differences of opinion. You know, yes, that's a thing. When we're seeking humanity and we're seeking to see people as people, when we're curious about individuals, more curious about the individual than we are being right in the moment, something very magical happens, right? People tend to accept people even though we see the world completely differently. I've seen, there was a really good book about the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu, two completely different backgrounds, but they both shared something in humanity and in similar struggles. But it was neat how they became really good friends because of they both had this high level of curiosity in getting to know each other. We want to honor each other in our dialogue. We also want to lean into discomfort and be bold and brave in learning and unlearning. There's just some things we think we understand that maybe someone's shared experience might challenge, and we have to look at that. Another thing is I'd like to share, and this is a tool I like to share, is this 80-20 regarding emotions. And understanding this principle that oftentimes what we see is like the 20% of the iceberg. And, we've seen this in business. You have the 20% of the iceberg, and then you have the big bottom that no one sees. That is still very much a thing in human relationships. And what I've found is that a lot of times we see people's frustrations. People say, Desmond, this would make sense if people weren't so angry, or maybe people weren't so this, or maybe if they talked a lot calmer, everything would work out. But what we don't see is a lot of the hurt, the emotions, the challenges, the trauma, and everything that makes that person a person. We don't often see that. So what we're simply responding to is emotions. So what our techniques should help us do, and what our tools should help us do, is be more curious behind what's motivating the emotion. What is currently motivating the challenges that people are going through? And in that motivation, we tend to find more meaningful answers. Debriefing is always important. Taking the time to facilitate and encourage conversations. If we're having EDI training and it has no conversation or minimal conversation, or the conversation isn't creating healthy dialogue, if we haven't created a safe space, we are not having EDI training. We are not having diversity and inclusion training if we are not creating this type of space. All we're having is a bunch of people in a room with different opinions, right? If we don't create this space where people are looking behind the struggles, where people are looking at people's motivations, then we're really not having meaningful discussions. If someone's just showing up and saying, hey, this is what it means to be Black, Latino, this and that, that is not a meaningful EDI discussion, okay? It should include everyone. Everyone should have some level of a voice and discussion in this process for it to be meaningful, or else it's not meaningful, okay? If I don't have my middle-class white dude being willing to share his feelings, right, then I'm not gonna have a meaningful EDI discussion, right? And when he shares his feelings, if I have people that are seeing him and seeing his humanity, and he feels confident in that, and he's listening to other people, we're inviting each other, the best parts of each other, that is an EDI discussion. And so anything outside of that is just the poorest forms of this. It's a good attempt, but it's a poor form, okay? And we encourage feedback without retaliation, right? Like, we can have feedback, we can have discussion, but obviously you see the importance of having like a very strong moderator, or someone who's trained in moderation, have someone who's trained in helping people see beyond emotions. You can see how like having a real powerful facilitator in this type of training could really give you some really meaningful dialogue. Okay, so we have 4 things we want to do, and they're all based upon Arbinger principles. We want to see people, and we're going to talk about what that means today. We want to uncover bias. We want to have some action and allyships, and we want to create change. All right. And so these are the 4 sections that I discussed. Let's go into section 1. Bias is a mindset problem. So let's talk about bias. John, in his introduction, gave us some bias. He said, go Utes, right? Now, we all know that anybody with common sense would be a BYU fan. We know that, right? But we also...
Wait. You're on...
Hey, I'm sorry, John. Please don't interrupt my instruction here.
Okay, you're good.
I'm teasing you. No, but the reality is, like, whether it's Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi, right? Whether it's the Big Mac or the Whopper, whether it's BYU or the Utes, right? We all have levels of bias, right? So we really have to have a clear understanding of what our definitions are and not be so offended. I've noticed that like people have this high level of offense to words like bias or racist or all these type of things. Like, what you want to do in a good EDI training, and this is to encourage all of my city managers, I know we have a lot of great city managers out there, is that make sure that when we're communicating, we're communicating the same definitions, right? We all have the same definitions. So when I'm talking about bias, I'm talking about these conscious and unconscious things that lead us in our lives, that help keep us safe, that help bring joy to our lives. And there's a lot of biases that we have. There are some things about the University of Utah that people can cheer for. They have a great gymnastics team, a great gymnastics team. Their football team's a little shoddy, but their gymnastics team is amazing, right? So there is some things we can vote for. So recognizing that we all bring this with us helps keep the barriers low. And so one of the tidbits I like to give is when we're teaching the discussion of bias, do not start traditionally with like racial bias. Don't start with these high levels of bias that people are going to be struggling with, right? Start with bias that people can relate to. All of us can relate to the BYU or the Utes or the Green Bay Packers or the Minnesota Vikings. Like all of us can relate to the Dallas Cowboys or the Washington Redskins. All of us can relate to the differences between like the bias. I've talked to medical people who like the emergency room people have bias against the EMTs, and the EMTs don't like the emergency doctors. And like everyone like has like some of these thoughts and feelings. And so start with relatable biases, because the reality is if I live in Utah, right, and I see a person of color, maybe one or two people of color, every so often, like in a given day, maybe if I'm lucky, if I live somewhere, I might catch a few in a given day. If I'm in some places, maybe one or two. But like if we're going to talk about things like bias, and the reality is, I don't have a lot of interactions with people of color. I'm going to be confused by that topic altogether, right? And so it's really important that when we talk about things like bias and we talk about things like mindset, that we start in a place where people can relate to it to get a clear picture of what we're trying to understand. Another thing too is that in creating a real clear definition, I can help remove a lot of the emotions that are tied to certain things. For example, I want you guys to use the chat window. We'll have fun here. Let's bust out the chat window. When I use the term racist, what do you think? What do you think the term racist means? Let's go ahead, put it in the chat window. Let me see what you think. For those that are still awake, if I use the term racist, what kind of definition would you give? What do you associate with that term? We all associate stuff with that term. What do you associate with the term racist? Negative interactions, good, thank you. Hate, jerk, putting oneself above another based upon race, one who feels superior, scary, a feeling of superiority. Good, all good, yes. To me, racist means someone who shows bias towards another person, feeling better than, all very good, okay? Misunderstood or discriminated against another race. Okay, all great. Now, here's my definition of race, okay? My definition of a racist is this. Racism is a process, a behavior, or a procedure, right? Any of those things where someone is treated differently because of the color of their skin, right? That's my definition. Now, imagine, right, if I'm talking about that from my definition, right, and I have Matt here, and Matt says, Matt's definition is racism has a lot to do with hate, right? And can you imagine like the type of dialogue if I'm like, Matt, I think that situation has some racism there. And Matt's like, it does not, man. There's nobody hates anybody here. We love people. We're totally cool. And like, but my definition is maybe there's something in that process or procedure where we're treating someone differently. And he goes, oh, okay, cool. I'm down with that. That's a much different definition, right? If everybody who is a racist is hateful or a jerk, just imagine the type of dialogue we're going to have in these type of trainings. And so definitions are so important because my definition, which I like, and we can all have our definitions, my definition focuses solely on are there any processes or procedures in which I'm treating someone else differently because of the color of their skin? That's it. That's my part. I don't think people are hateful, even though there's a small percentage of people who are racist that are associated with that, but it's a small percentage of people, folks. Understand this. I spent a good portion of my career as a therapist in a prison. I used to sit knee to knee with white supremacists that had like white pride on their necks and like kill blacks like tattooed on their hands, right? And I'm doing therapy with them, right? And there's something I learned through that process was this. They probably had never had a meaningful relationship with someone like me. So in the course of working with this person and having a meaningful relationship and helping this person move forward, it was amazing to me how opinions changed. But I'll tell you what, I had to change my definitions on what it meant to sitting across from a white supremacist, right? I had to, because there were things that in my mind, what they were and who they were, what it meant to me. And so we're both going through this process, right? I'm learning, hey, maybe not all white supremacists want to stab me in the head, right? And they're learning, hey, maybe this black person can be helpful. I didn't know that's a thing. But this mutual learning, even though there's vast differences, can really bridge the gap. And a lot of it starts with the definitions we have, the meaning behind the definitions we have, and being willing to learn and unlearn some of those things. Like me moving racism from hate helped me to create more practical processes to help create change. Does that make sense? Not all people are hateful. Not all people are jerks. Not all people are ugly. Now, those things are important when you have an EDI meeting and you have so much diversity, so many different people who are coming to the table to have these discussions. All right. Another thing I want to discuss, and then we'll talk a little bit about the two mindsets, is like, how do we start, right? One thing we wanted to talk about is safe versus brave. And I wanted to bring this up because in a lot of organizations, people say, hey, well, why didn't you speak up? Why didn't you like share this information? Like, why didn't you, if you were struggling with this, Desmond, man, we wanted to know. We don't want you to struggle. We don't want you to have a tough time. And so what you're asking me to be is brave. And I might not have the capacity to be brave. To me, there might be way too much risk in me sharing the difficulties I'm going through at work. And I don't have that level of bravery because let me tell you something, brave does not feed my children. And I'm just keeping it real. I have experienced a lot of difficult things and sure I could have spoke up, but I knew better. Why? Because it would have made my job more difficult, which would have made it more difficult for me to do what I really wanted to do. And that was take care of my family. Brave does not pay your bills. Okay. So what is the difference? If we create an environment of safety, I don't have to be brave. Does that make sense? Like if I have a problem, if I have a racial issue, if I have a challenge, I don't have to be brave because I know the people I communicate with and the people that I'm working with have an environment of safety for me, right? So I want you to consider that. Or if I'm trying to encourage people to be brave, or am I creating systems of behaviors and policies in which people can be safe when they communicate? There's a completely different thing. And I've worked with a lot of HR organizations that are like, oh, we tell people all the time, well, you need to talk to that person, or you need to communicate with that person. There's a problem that person needs to know. And in a lot of times, that level of bravery may be extremely difficult for a person to accomplish. Okay, let's talk a little bit about this basic Arbinger principle, and this will feed into some of the other things we're gonna go into. Okay, very simply, right? Inward versus outward, right? If I am inward, I'm simply focused on myself and the impact that others have on me. My objectives and behaviors are self-focused. And so others become objects. And some of you are thinking, I don't do that. You do. I do it. And I facilitate this stuff. We all have moments when we're inward, where we're self-focused, where we're really not thinking about people. I'll give you an example you might be able to relate to. When I was a manager, I was so happy when people simply did their job, right? I loved, my favorite people were the people that did their jobs. I didn't really know who they were. I was just happy that they didn't cause me problems, right? In that moment, I'm being self-focused. I'm focused on my own objectives and self-behaviors. And those people are objects. They're vehicles to me. And so we have this sometimes. We go through life worrying about how people impact us. That's inwardness. Outwardness is this process of, I still have my objective behaviors, so I still have a goal I'm trying to accomplish. The only difference is I take others into account, right? Their needs and their objectives matter to me. My impact on them matter to me, right? And so one of the challenges we've learned in all kinds of things, particularly in city government, and I know a lot of you see this, you guys are all a lot of administrators in city government, is that people do dumb stuff because they're not recognizing impact, right? They say something stupid or they behave in a way, not recognizing how that could impact someone else. And so this ability, this outward mindset, when I'm focused on our results, when I'm focused on my impact on others, just think of the things we can resolve. If you think about one or two of your most pressing challenges right now in your life, personal or work, one or two of your most pressing challenges. And typically at the heart of some of those challenges is, am I being self-focused? And am I worrying about how people are impacting me? Or am I focused not just on myself, but the needs, objectives, and challenges of someone else? Or are they just objects? Are they objects or are they people? In my most challenging relationships, in my most challenging, most difficult relationships, I'm traditionally seeing people as objects. Someone did give a great comment, like how do you create a safe environment in Zoom? That's a great comment. Let me stop for a second. I would say one of the most effective ways to create a safe environment in Zoom is to be very deliberate. When I'm in Zoom, when I'm not in the room with someone, I have to be more instructive and more deliberate in the fact that I'm trying to create this environment. Like literally, if I was in person with all of you, I would probably say, okay, guys, we want to create a self environment, and I'd give a few highlights. If I know I have a Zoom meeting and I'm trying to create this environment, I would be sending out an article, some information. Hey, could you possibly read this? We want to create a safe environment. These are some of the elements of the environment. Please email me back when you've read it. We want to make sure we're nice and prepared. I would be much more deliberate in my ability to engage people. I'd do more prep work because when we're not around people, it's difficult to feel the energy in the room, for sure. Like at this point, all I'm teaching is, I'm teaching this little light in front of me. So it's very difficult for me to like use like my intuitive nature to be effective. So when I don't have that, then I have a lot of instruction on PowerPoint to make sure that ideas will get across so people have visuals and different things like that. So I would create more visuals, I would create more prep work, and I'd do those type of things for sure. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So the next slide is in the chat window. So recognizing the difference between an outward and an inward mindset, what does it mean to be truly alive to a person's objectives, hopes, needs, and challenges? I want you to put that in the chat window. What do you think? What do you think in the chat window? What does it mean to be alive to someone else? While I'm doing my work, what does it mean? Give me an example. how would I see someone? How would I see their goals, their objectives, and their challenges? How would I take those things into account while I'm doing my job? What does that mean? What do you think? Write your responses in the chat window. All right. Yeah, experience their lives somehow, walk with them for a while, absolutely. Take a moment in every interaction to ask something personal about them, very good. Mindfulness that everyone has a story, very good as well. Remember to make comments readable to both the panelists and okay. Yeah, are we not making these comments? Does everyone? I'll read them out if you can, so we'll be good. I believe in sincere eye contact and waiting for my opinion, adapt my work. I would spend time listening before, substantive issues were discussed or decisions made. That's very good. One of my beliefs is, and I'll share it as we move forward, is that my ability to reduce bias, my ability to reduce behaviors in which might be uncomfortable for someone, all of those things are reduced when my curiosity is heightened, right? When I am very curious about a person, when I am in this mode of learning about a person, be mindful that everyone has a story, but then have enough curiosity to understand that story. It really is helpful in giving me the capacity to work more effectively with that person. Think of the people that you struggle with the most. How well do you know their story? And if you know their story very well, are you focused on the negative parts of their story? So, how well do you know their story? And if you know their story really well, or you believe you do, is the majority of that story or that narrative negative, right? It's amazing that when the parts of the story we know about people we struggle most with are the parts of the story where we're objectifying them and we don't see much more of the humanity in the individual. So our capacity to see humanity, our capacity to have this high level of curiosity is directly related to our capacity to lower things like bias, lower things like behaviors in which we don't see people and their cultures. Like my level of curiosity can really cure a lot of those different things. And so that's just one little tidbit to you. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about inward styles and red flags. So what we typically have is, let me go back to that. Let me share the screen with you guys real quick. Bear with me, apologize. All right, so one of the ways to identify like when we're inward or outward or different circumstances like that is really looking at like this ability to look at our red flags, okay? Red flags are simply things or ways in which we behave that let us know that we're probably being a little self-focused. And one of them, which is super interesting, is this feeling to feel justified. If I have this desire, right, to do what is right, that's great. But if someone challenges that and now I have to justify my behavior, I'm just being self-focused, right? Justifications are just, okay, oh, this person totally agrees with me. Now I'm going to justify why I did what I did. That's just a sign of, in this moment, I'm more worried about what I think about what you think than about you necessarily being a person. And I know that's kind of tricky, but I really want you to really kind of think on that. Is like, if all I'm doing is trying to justify what I'm doing or why I'm doing it, why am I doing that? Does that have anything to do with seeing that person as a person? Or does it have anything to do with the validations and how I see the world? Okay. I get defensive. Oh, that's one of my favorite. I get defensive. I blame. I horribilize. Horribilize is just a word where I take something small and I make it worse. I remember I was working for an organization and we would shuffle papers. So I, as a supervisor, I'd take the papers and we'd shuffle them. We put them into the different places so people could grab them. Well, one day, and so I've successfully shuffled papers for years. One day I forgot to shuffle papers. And they wake me up because I was a graveyard shift. They wake me up, have me come down to the office. I come down. I think the world's coming to an end. And they were like, "You didn't shuffle your papers today." I'm like, "Yeah, oh, okay." They're like, "No, well, yeah, okay, my bad." Well, someone else had to shuffle them. I'm like, "Yeah, well, I've done that for other people. There have been times, come off a graveyard. Well, this is like a serious thing." I'm like, "Well, how so?" Right? The reality is that as a person, right? As a person, I may miss something on occasion. But as an object, I have no right to miss it. Does that make sense? If they saw me as a person in that moment, maybe that would be something in which, oh, okay, this is a situation. Does other people do it? Yeah, okay, other people do it. Okay. And so recognizing that we can make matters worse by how we perceive that person. And in our perceptions, we can treat people as objects. I feel victimized. We're not talking about victims. We just talk about this feeling of being treated poorly. I label others. I exaggerate differences. I exaggerate values, and I focus on myself. All right. Now, when I'm feeling self-focused, I want you to ask yourself, put in the chat window, do I do any of those things? Write down any of those things you do. Okay. You can also write all of the above because I could do all of those, but I want you to think about it. Do you guys have any of those red flag behaviors when you're struggling with someone else? When you're struggling with a difficult circumstance at work? What do you think? Someone said yes. Put down one that you're good at. Justification. Oh, yeah. Everybody write down, what is a common red flag that you use? Unfortunately, hey, we all do it. Listen, folks, you're in good company. All right. We all do these things. We're just bringing up the point. All right. Justification. Yeah, people get that. And it's amazing because we're in government work, and in government work, like it seems like the half of our day is justifying why we did what we did as managers, right? And really keep in mind that you have to ask yourself why. Why am I do I need to explain this, or am I feeling I need to justify something? Now, there's nothing wrong with explanations on why you made the decisions you made, but there's a completely different energy and feel behind justifications, and we really have to be aware of that. And why that is important is that it gives us an idea of when we're self-focused and when we're not self-focused. All right. The next idea is collusion and allies, right? So one of the challenges that we like to discuss in Arbinger is like, what happens, right, when I see people as objects? What do they do? All right. They often see me as an object. And so in this particular situation, when I have a collusion is between two people, sometimes two organizations. And what I see is I see an object, and I blame that person. And what do? They see an object and they blame. And so what we're doing is we're caught in this cycle of two people seeing each other as objects. And because of that, the very thing that's bothering us is the very thing that keeps going on. Now, think of a situation in your life, at work, whatever, at home. Think of a situation in your life currently where the thing that's bothering you the most is something that's always going on. Like this person bothers me when they do this, or this person bothers me, or this is a difficult situation. Think of all of those things, right? And what you'll traditionally see is they're treating you as an object and you're treating them as an object. And so the behaviors don't change. Now, it can give it even more complicated when we bring other people into it, right? I'm struggling with this person, and now I bring allies people that want to relate to me. Oh, come on, you know what I'm going through. You have that issue with John all the time. Yeah, you're right. I do have that issue with John. I really struggle with John. You know, I mean, we do these things all the time. And so now we have whole organizations and parts of organizations that are in collusions with each other. Now, what the impact of this is we're not performing or working together or developing the type of meaningful relationships we want, right? The thing I love about Arbinger work more than anything is that it really helps me evaluate my most difficult relationships, my most difficult struggles, and what's at the source of them, right? And so my ability to address the source of them, maybe my objectification or how I'm perceiving someone else, addressing that is one of the more powerful starts to starting to fix the problem. Okay, so let's see how that relates to some of these EDI principles, right? We want to enhance dialogue and improve communication. When we have really solid EDI work, we're improving and enhancing dialogue through the process. And I recommend to the cities and counties, to the organizations that are listening to this, really ask yourself, am I enhancing dialogue? Am I improving conversations? Or am I just in the middle of it and I'm like, you stop this, or there's not enough information to say that you did this wrong, or we'll give the person a warning. Like we're in there trying to put a Band-Aid on a situation that involves enhanced dialogue and improved communication, right? And what happens a lot of times is, since we feel we're the Judge Judy, right? For those that know Judge Judy, Judge Wapner, I don't know, for the old school folk, we feel that because we're a Judge Judy, we're in the middle, right? Then there has to be a loser, right? Somebody has to win and someone has to lose. But that is not the goal of relationships. In relationships, when there's a difficulty, that's simply a sign that dialogue and communication needs to be improved. So I just want you to keep that in mind, because I know we have a lot of city managers, a lot of administrators here. Am I putting a Band-Aid on this issue? Someone shows up and they're a person of color and they feel they've been discriminated upon. How do I deal with that? Well, how's my dialogue? How's the communication for our city or county? How are we supporting this person? Are we trusting their learned experiences? Are people educated in a way in which we can be helpful to this person? Or are we simply trying to put a Band-Aid on the problem, right? And so one of the things I highly recommend is that you create a system in which communication is at a level so that we're going to help things go right. And we're going to talk about that here in the next few minutes, about what that means to help make things go right. Another thing is like, recognize like our power dynamics. I've always wanted to share that. I already shared some of these other things about leaning into discomfort and allyship. Our power dynamics is recognizing that in a lot of circumstances and situations, it's very difficult for people to talk about certain things because there is a power dynamic, all right? And so when you're working with people and you're working with issues and problems, ask yourself, like, how I'm telling this person to improve dialogue and communication, but it's with their supervisor. Like, is there a power dynamic that might make that more difficult? So understanding those principles will help you create more creative ideas and how to improve dialogue. I'll give an example. If a person's having an issue with a supervisor, I might start that healthy dialogue as a triad. I would be a part of that healthy dialogue. I would be a person in that healthy dialogue who would be mimicking and social modeling the type of communication and dialogue I want, okay? And in that situation, because of the power dynamic, I can help relieve that because I can be that person. So instead of being the Judge Judy that's saying, you're right, you're wrong, fix this, or whatever, you can be that person that's in that meeting, improving communication and dialogue, and being a part of that positive change, and being able to measure and to move forward. All right, We're going to talk about applying SAM and the influence pyramid in just a second. Another thing is that a lot of people have been asking me questions about what does recruiting and hiring look like? What does creative and inclusive teams and talent development, what do all those things look like? And I tell people, and I said at the beginning, I'll say it now. If diversity is something you're not excited about, you need to get more educated about how it can help your organization. And I'll just leave it at that. Like, if diversity's got to be one of those things, okay, yeah, maybe we should do some EDI training, you know, it's kind of a hot topic and everybody's wondering about this and everybody's wondering about that. Like if that's your take on diversity and inclusion, please call me and we can go to lunch and talk about it. But like, I really want you to consider how this is something that can really make your organization healthier, safer, just a better place to work for everyone. And that people won't have to engage things when there's problems. Like people can engage diversity and inclusion when it's not a problem. Whether it's an organization that's having like ethnic day, right? Where everyone brings something good to eat, right? My food might be a little different. I mean, there's so many things you can do to celebrate culture. Let's have a culture day. Let's all bring different things that we grew up with, right? But like, instead of creating a mechanism in which it's celebrated, a lot of organizations are coming into this like, I don't know. What are we going to do? I'm not sure. Maybe we should call this person. I don't know. The reality is take ownership of it. Be excited about it. Like I said, I'll send you that report about the production of how diversity improves organizations. Gain a better understanding about it, and then lead with excitement and lead with an opportunity to be excited about what you're doing, instead of leading with something like some sort of like mandate to be a decent human being, right? Oh no, I've got to learn about someone else's culture. Oh no, you know, because like there's no mandate to this. It's some excitement in it, and I can't say that enough. Let's address tools. Okay, one of the tools we love sharing is lessons of the pyramid. So this is the influence pyramid. So the influence pyramid is utilized when I go through these steps. I'm helping to influence people to be outward. Okay, I'm not just influencing myself, even though I do have some influence here, but I'm helping people I'll help influence people to be outward. Okay, at the bottom, the first thing we want to do is improve our mindset. We want to spend the majority of what we're doing helping things go right. Now, here's the clue. If you spend the majority of your time doing this, correct, fix this, I got to fix that, I got to fix this, I got to fix that, and you're not spending a lot of time in the bottom of this pyramid, listening and learning, teaching and communicating, building relationships, if all you're doing is correcting all day, right, you're probably exhausted. I'm pretty sure you're tired. I'm pretty sure you're exhausted. And I'm pretty sure everywhere you turn, there's a problem. Now, some of the benefits of building good relationships, of listening and learning and teaching and communicating, is that I'm now, as we say in Arbinger, we are creating accountable people instead of holding people accountable. In my process of correcting, correct, I'm trying to hold everybody accountable. In the process of teaching, communicating, listening and learning, building relationships, I'm creating accountable people. Now, as we apply this to the EDI conversation, right? If our organization and leadership, a lot of what we're doing with EDI is we wait till there's a problem and then we try to correct it. Rarely are we teaching and communicating. Rarely are we listening and learning. Rarely are we building relationships with people. We just wait till there's an EDI problem and then we try to put a Band-Aid on it. And that leaves you exhausted. It leaves you with a lack of ideas, and it leaves you with like cookie cutter ways of addressing it just to say you did it for liability purposes. Our ability to teach and communicate, listen and learn and build relationships, and also check our mindset, really will give us some of the innovation and creativity we need to not just put a Band-Aid on the problem, but develop processes and procedures to create health around the problem. Okay, some of the basic things is we work from the bottom up. When we're stuck, we go lower, and mindset matters most. Recognizing that before I even engage a problem, what's my mindset like? Am I self-focused? Am I more worried about what's going to go wrong? Or am I seeing that this is a person with a problem instead of a problem? Okay. Next point is SAM. This is another Arbinger principle we like to use. See others, adjust efforts, measure impact. When we start to truly see people, like I said, when we have that high level of curiosity, right? And we start to see people and their needs and their goals and their challenges, naturally, we change. We make adjustments to be more, to be able to help that person and to help them help us in our work products. It's amazing how different people are when they experience something, right? It's amazing what we think we know until we get to know someone that maybe experienced something different. And I think that's the cool thing about meaningful, innovative EDI training, is that everyone in the training matters. Every single person in the training matters. I had one person I was in a training with this last week. He goes, man, I just don't think like there's a place for like middle-class white guys. Like, I'm like, dude, I wouldn't have neighbors, right? We need middle-class white guys, or else I don't have neighbors, right? The reality is that everybody has a place, and just as I'm seeing that other person, I'm giving them an invitation to see me as well. So what we don't want in this, guys, is that we're so afraid to make mistakes, we're so afraid to not do things the way we want to do it, that we break down. We just huddle down and we hunker down and we don't engage anyone for fear to make mistakes. By seeing others, by having this level of curiosity, by adjusting efforts and measuring impact, we're more likely to engage people as people, and we're giving them an invitation for us to do the same. One of the societal issues we have right now is we're simply seeing each other as objects. And we need to like break out of that. And I can't say that enough. Okay, so the next piece is, any questions? What do you have from me, guys? You can put it in the chat window. Any questions you have? I think we have about, 10 minutes left, John? Where are we at? I think we have 10 minutes left. Any questions, please throw it in the chat window. Okay, we have one here. It says, I am new to the council and the only female and minority. Okay, I feel like I may be starting to objectify others that have done it to me for so long. Oh boy, tips. Okay, this is the thing. I think, first of all, Robin, kudos, because you see the problem. So the first challenge is you see where you're at and you see your problem. And sometimes we're invisible to that, right? We could be treating people as objects and just be in this box and not even see it. You see it. So what I would say is, and this is something I had to learn as a minority in Utah, working in a prison with a bunch of white supremacists. And it's interesting how all your clients end up being white supremacists. I don't know how that happened. I personally thought it was a conspiracy, but I got over it. I would say this. When I'm starting to objectify people, I just don't understand them as well as I need to. And so instead of kind of being in that internal mode, and I think you know what I'm talking about, Robin, where it's just kind of eating at you a little bit, where you want to have a more meaningful relationship, but it's hard to because people are just hard. People are hard. This is an activity we utilize when people are hard and difficult. And that is, I become more curious and I try to understand that person at a much deeper level than when I see them, okay? I'm also giving an invitation to do the same, right? By me seeking out their humanity, I'm giving them an invitation to seek out my humanity as well, okay? Congratulations on being in the council. Get after it. I love it. Any other questions? Throw them at me, folks. What do you have? Okay, we have one here. It says, how can you help partners that may be hyper angry so much that it makes others feel uncomfortable? Excellent question. Remember, when people are angry, they don't feel seen. The only problem with anger is it makes it even more complicated to be seen. But being the person that is seeing this person who's hyper angry, notice that that is an indication or a clue that they don't feel visible. They just do not feel visible in that circumstance. and my level of curiosity in trying to help a person through that can be super helpful. I had an example once. I was talking to this lady, and she was in like this high level of, I mean, she was so upset that as a therapist, I thought there was a level of psychosis there. And one of the words I always use, this is my go-to Arbinger word. I think I made it up, but it's an Arbinger word I use. It's called this: how can I be helpful? And then I listen and learn. How can I be helpful? I can tell you're really frustrated. How can I be helpful? How can I be helpful? How can I be helpful? Sometimes I get home and my wife is frustrated and there's some things that go on, and I come home and I just look at her and say, how can I be helpful? And I don't make assumptions that I have the answers. I just ask, how can I be helpful? And whatever it is, I do it. In that moment, it's helpful. And so I would be, when you see this hyper angry, remember that's that 20%. There's a lot in the 80% we don't see and don't understand. Take a position of being an ally or a support. How can I be helpful is something I utilize all the time at work. When I see people are frustrated, when people are going through things, instead of me trying to interpret their mind, instead of me trying to figure out, oh, I know what they need, I just listen and learn, and I go, how can I be helpful? So that's one of my primary things, and I totally encourage that. Oh, so how can I introduce Arbinger principles without pointing fingers? My kids think I'm some Arbinger junkie. They think I have major Arbinger issues. What I do is I have that outward mindset online. And I will say you this: if you send John your email, I can send you a 7-day outward mindset online pass. So you have a free 7-day access to that thing, so you can take a look at it. Send John your emails. He'll send it to me. I'll send you an email with a 7-day pass. But I use those 10 to 12 minute videos as like family discussions every night. Hey, let's learn what it means. And I show a 12-minute outward mindset video. That way it's not me pointing my finger saying, we need to do this, and this is what it means to be outward. I let them watch the video, and kids, everyone loves, they love watching something. We watch videos and then we discuss it. One of the struggles is that I'm in some of the videos, so my kids think I'm balling. Oh, look at dad trying to ball like he's in a video. He's all cool. No, but really that's what I do. Send me your emails. I'll put my email in this. You guys can send it to, it's dlomax@Arbinger, and I'll send you a 7-day pass to go ahead. So send me your emails and I'll send you a 7-day pass to Outward Mindset Online. I would take those 7 days, and I'm not kidding, I'd show as many videos to my family as I could, and get after it. So there is my email. Send me an email. I'll get you a 7-day pass. Excellent question. Any other questions, folks? We have a few more minutes left. Those are good questions. Any other questions? Bev, it's good to see you again. Miss your guts. You're an amazing human being. I hope everything is going well for you. And you have my email now, so we have to catch up. All right. I think we're good. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, guys. I appreciate everything. John, you want to take over at this point? Send me your emails. I'll send you a 7-day pass for Outward Mindset Online, folks. Thank you.